There you go.
Childhood obesity rates have increased for decades, and while some recent data suggests some stabilization to the problem, obesity is manifested in ever younger children, and the severity has increased. Obesity is the most rampant nutritional disorder affecting America's youth. The proportions have tripled since 1963. The activity level of America's youth has many contributing factors. Schools have eliminated or limited PE time due to the high demands of No Child Left Behind. The world isn't as safe as it once was, therefore parents would rather have their children inside their homes, which leads to more TV time, more computer time, more video game time, rather than being outside, running and playing with friends. And families are frequenting the fast food restaurants more often. And these foods are very high in fat, very high in calories, and very high in sugar content. And the proportion sizes are always increasing. Many children that are obese experience a lower quality of life. They are at risk for many health problems and psychological issues. The negative effects of childhood obesity are far-reaching and extend beyond one's youth. It is starting to be more common for young people to develop asthma, sleep apnea, liver problems, and they're at higher risk of developing heart disease later on in life. Research suggests that childhood obesity is alarmingly high in America due to physical inactivity, nutritional deterioration of diet, causing several chronic diseases in America's youth. So we ask ourselves, what is the percentage of America's youth being obese? The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey collected data from 2-year-old to 19-year-olds. They determined the body mass index, which is a specific number that you get by taking an individual's weight in kilogram and dividing it by their height in meters and square it. Now these numbers can be compared to a growth chart that was produced by the Center for Disease Control in the year 2000. They are age and sex specific, and when an individual's BMI or body mass index falls in the 95th percentile or above, they are determined obese. So as you look up here, they are grouped in 3 different groups. The blue line represents the 2 to 5-year-olds who were obese. And in 1971, you can see here, 5% were obese, and it climbed to 10.4% in the year 2008. The red line represents the 6 to 11-year-olds, which in 1963, 4.2% were considered to be obese, falling in that 95th percentile or above. And in the year 2008, 19.6% of America's youth, ranging 6 to 11 years old, were obese. And the green line represents the 12 to 19-year-olds who were obese. And in 1963, 4.6% were determined to be obese. And in the year 2008, 18.1% were obese. Now, these numbers are way too high. This is our youth. These are our future generations. Obesity has severe complications and can affect these children physically, mentally, and socially. You have a question?
Yes, just 1 minute, please. Do the terms obesity and being overweight mean the same thing?
That's a great question. Obesity and overweight are different, but we oftentimes use them to represent the same thing. But along the growth chart in from the CDC, those that fall at the 95th percentile or above are determined to be obese. Now, an individual whose BMI ranges at the 85th percentile and above, but still below the 95th percentile, they are determined as overweight. You have another question?
And how many children are considered to be overweight versus how many are considered to be obese?
In America, the recent data suggests that 21 to 24% of American youth ranging from the ages 2 to 19 are overweight, and another 16 to 18% are obese. Thank you for your question. Okay, so now that we know the statistics, we know that they are too high. We need healthy children in America. So what are the causes? The first cause that I'd like to address is physical inactivity. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Center to Prevent Childhood Obesity conducted a study that suggests less than 1/3 of American youth aged 6 to 17 are involved in vigorous activity each day. Now, their definition of vigorous activity is at least 20 minutes of activity that allows the child to breathe hard and sweat. Now, the American Heart Association recommends that the youth get 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity per day. So why aren't these kids getting the activity that they need each day? The first area that I'd like to focus on is modern technology. Modern technology has seduced American children into a sedentary lifestyle. They have the computer, they have the TVs, they have the video games, they have the iPods. It requires all this action, but none of this action. The American Heart Association conducted a national survey that proved that over 25% of 8 to 16-year-old children watched at least 4 hours of television each day. The recommended screen time, anything with a screen, is 2 hours a day. Our children need to be limited to that 2 hours. Now, the second point I want to focus on why the children are not getting the activity that they need is the PE time, the physical education in our schools. The schools have limited the PE times and in some cases eliminated it completely. In 1991, 42% of high school students were enrolled in daily PE courses. And in 2003, that number dropped to 28%. And today, 8% of elementary schools in our nation provide daily physical education courses for children. And our middle schools and our junior high schools, there's 6% in the nation that provide a daily physical education course for their children. As well as the high schools, they have 6% in the nation providing a daily PE course for our children. The third point I'd like to make on physical inactivity is the environment within the communities that influence access to physical activity opportunities and the level of safety that is ensured to participate in them. In some urban and suburban areas, the outdoor space is limited. There's no space for these kids to get out and run and play and to be active, while other areas are unprotected, crime-ridden, or high-traffic areas. And these situations place our children in homes rather than being outside and being active. And because of these, fewer children are walking to school, fewer children are participating in physical activity. The second cause that I want to focus on of obesity in America is the deterioration of our nutritional diets. Children are developing poor eating habits and selecting foods with less nutritional values. The soda consumption has increased drastically. More food is eaten away from home than at home meals, and these foods in the restaurants are higher in fat, higher in calorie, higher in sugar, and their proportions are increasing. Children today eat 8% more than they did 30 years ago. That might not sound like a lot, but when you combine that with a lowered physical activity, it can't balance out. When a child doesn't expend the energy but is consuming all these calories and the energy, the calories that aren't used get deposited and stored as fat in their body. 20 years ago, an average serving of French fries was 2.4 ounces, and the average cheeseburger was 333 calories. Today, an average serving of French fries is 6.9 ounces, and the average cheeseburger is worth 590 calories. Only 21% of the youth eat the recommended 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And this is interesting. Nearly half of all the vegetables consumed are fried potatoes. So when we have a lowered physical activity, an increase of calories in consumption, and poor nutrition, it's a recipe for disease. Childhood obesity is associated with various health problems and consequences. The annual direct medical costs in America associated with childhood obesity alone is $14.1 billion. The psychosocial stress of social stigmatization causes low self-esteem and depression and can affect a child's academic performance or social interactions. Obesity increases the risks of developing cardiovascular diseases like high cholesterol, high blood pressure. A population-based sample of 5 to 17-year-olds showed that 70% of obese children exhibited one cardiovascular disease factor, and 39% of the obesity children had 2 or more of the cardiovascular risk factors. Obesity has recently replaced smoking as the leading cause of an early heart attack. Other health risks associated with obesity: asthma, fatty livers, sleep apnea, and type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is developed, the number one cause is caused by being overweight. Type 1 diabetes, which is genetic, comprised most newly diagnosed diabetes cases among children until recently. Now, at least 45% of the newly diagnosed diabetes cases among children is type 2 diabetes. Obese children are more than 2 times more likely to die before the age of 55 than those of children of a healthy weight. So with 1 in 3 children in America being affected by this obesity epidemic in America, the number is too high. The causes are multifactorial, and they rely on the presence of more than one source to fuel its evolution. Ultimately, obesity stems from lack of adequate physical exercise and poor nutritional habits, both in amounts and the composition. And if this trend continues, it may well cripple America's future generation and overburden an already taxed healthcare system. As a nation, as a people, we need to become aware. We need to bring about change. We need to change our habits, change our understanding, and change our values. Do you value a healthy mind? Do you value a strong body? Do you value the ability to go outside and take a walk with family or friends? Do you value the ability to run and play and ride bikes with friends and neighbors? It may seem difficult, but the alternative is unacceptable and otherwise unavoidable.